we're doing a lot of microservice architecture, backend APIs that are based on Docker, Kubernetes, to try to create a to-do app because it's pretty easy to find on the internet. But then don't just focus on the app from a software development perspective, but just focus on that app from a DevOps perspective.
Hello all, my name is Simon. Welcome to NetCafe. Welcome to the third interview with my fellow engineering friend. First time we had a conversation with Santiago about the networking engineering. Later on we had a talk with David about the cybersecurity and DevSecOps. And today I have my good friend Madi talking about from more software engineering perspective. Madi, can you please introduce yourself, what you do, what's your profile, and what you're currently working on?
First of all, thank you very much for having me in one of your shows, and I'm very glad to be one of your guests. So my name is Mehdi, as you know me already. I am a Fulbright alumnus. And in this occasion, I would love to thank again the Fulbright program and Amid East for selecting me to be one of the Fulbrighters, like the Algerian Fulbrighters. I currently call Oslo home. So I've been living here for more than 3 years now. I'm currently working as a backend developer for one of the largest retail companies named Coop Norge. As a backend developer, as I said, and we basically work with Coop partners. Great company. It has like an exciting and dynamic work environment, and I'm very grateful to be a part of it.
Super. Just for someone that wouldn't know, can you tell us more or less what is Fulbright?
Yeah, Fulbright is a cultural exchange program offered by the government of the United States. Yeah, so it's available in many countries. I don't know how many exactly, but there's like Fulbright France, Fulbright Germany, Fulbright Algeria. Yeah, and it's one of the most known scholarships in the world.
You currently calling Oslo your home, but then you also in the past did the Fulbright program. Can you tell us the link on sort of how did you start it with your education and then you moved towards the software backend development engineering to Oslo? What is sort of the story here?
From the very first day I got my hands on a personal computer, I started just code and just started to develop some interest for anything that's IT related. I consider myself to be a visual person. So I used to play like a lot with user interfaces, web user interfaces, and like doing some image processing. And while I was doing my graduate or engineering degrees in Algeria, I used to experiment with all of that. And I was more specialized in electrical engineering. At that time, I just started to feel that it's better for me now to just change areas. So just when I got the Fulbright scholarship, I just went to the United States to pursue my master's degree in the University in New Mexico. Yeah, it's like I just like worked with some smart people there. That's basically how the computer engineering journey started. And then I just went to France to also work with some companies, and I started like a little bit to specialize more and just started doing more web development. And from France, just like moved to Oslo. This is how I ended up here in Oslo. So
what an exciting journey, very multicultural and multinational. So there are just few countries on the way and maybe detouring a bit from the engineering topics, but which one you felt most comfortable? Is it Oslo now and Norway?
I'm really happy here in Oslo. I think that it's life here is really relaxed, and then people are very nice. The work culture is great for me. So I think that so far I'm happy here, and I think that's why I could stay for more than 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I myself also been living in France for a second. Now I'm living in Denmark, coming from Poland, which is also a few countries, but I couldn't be more happy to live in Scandinavia. Of course, it has its disadvantages and its advantages, but absolutely I fully understand when you're talking about the people and work-life balance and relaxing working culture. It's absolutely something magnificent, and I think also very unique. I wanted to ask you about, because you work as a backend software engineer, I wanted to ask you, what are the sort of latest trends in your domain that you see? Like, I don't know whether it's a DevOps or it's a cloud or it's like strong presence of AI in the software development. How do you see that?
I haven't been following, like, I would say, like the latest of the latest trends, for sure. But from what I can see, at least from the work I have right now, is that we're doing a lot of microservice architecture, backend APIs that are based on Docker, Kubernetes, and of course, DevOps is definitely involved there. It's involved. I would say AI is also being introduced rapidly, I think, in environment. So I would say that the DevOps is here. Service architecture is here too. There is the AI also is being is getting more popular. And I think at least that's what I can think of. And the tools that everyone using for years are still today, like any programming language or it's like build tools and so on.
Do you also feel that it also impacted you, that, for example, the changes that you push towards for the production server are much more sort of frequent, and the operation of the changes now using the tools like Docker or CI/CD or Terraform, whatever, it makes easier to manage the workloads operation-wise?
I think you have touched on an interesting topic here, because this is like a little bit related to DevOps and its impact or its involvement in the development process. I think that many would argue or would think that DevOps in general slowed the development process, which is it can be true. Sometimes it is true, that's for sure. But in my opinion, like, the benefits of DevOps outweigh the hiccups, because DevOps basically made it much easier for developers to deploy regularly through like CI/CD pipeline. People deploy in general more confidently. I love automation, and I think what DevOps did is like one of the blessings of DevOps is that it reduced all those tedious and mundane tasks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that we should definitely be thankful to DevOps.
I have seen some time ago the calendar where you have a pre-DevOps area where you have only sort of one day of the calendar marked, and DevOps area where you have like all the days marked, and the writing was that the days where you can push the change. So it's not like just 1 day per month when you push everything and then everything breaks, but now you push more regularly, and that just makes it much more easier. A lot of people are trying to actually break into the domain. What are sort of the starting or beginner projects that you would recommend to someone if the person would like to sort of, for example, move from Linux administrating or software testing or even software development towards more DevOps and operation of the containers or whatever? What is the sort of projects that you would recommend it?
Yeah, there's like a plethora of projects that you can work on, and there's you can approach different issues in so many ways. I would say like the simplest way is that just try to create a to-do app, because it's pretty easy to find on the internet. But then don't just focus on the app from a software development perspective, but just focus on that app from a DevOps perspective. Because usually in any backend application, you have to create like an infrastructure for that specific API or backend application. And then if you focus, or at least if you see that application from that perspective, you will start to think about how you will create those, let's say, Terraform files to deploy your application, and how, if you are going to use the microservice architectures, like how are you going to write your Docker files, and how are you going to create the Kubernetes cluster in that and how you're going to integrate that with the Terraform files that you're writing. So I think that if you approach that project from that perspective and just try to see how you can also implement a CI/CD pipeline to that specific project, I think just by doing that, you are touching on DevOps and you're just learning DevOps.
Well, it's such a great answer, and it just got me thinking that some time ago I did this famous cloud resume challenge. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's more or less about, having the very simple like application, which is your CV website with HTML and CSS files, and then you sort of using the either one of the free cloud providers infrastructure to sort of make it more DevOps. So you using some AWS, I was using some AWS services to host it, to put it on CDN. Then I used the CI/CD pipeline. So every time when I was updating the website, I was updating the code. So it was going to the Git, then to CI/CD pipeline, to the hosting using the AWS, of course. So it's not really, as you said, it's not really about just the code that builds the application, but it's all of the tools around it and nicely integrating this. I remember the last part of it was to not to use any tool except Terraform. So write all this like a long YAML file that provision all the AWS infrastructure that you need to sort of have this project going. So it was such a great learning, and I just couldn't enjoy it more. Okay, so now maybe we touch upon DevOps, we touch upon your career, and now I would like to also touch upon a little bit of the challenges that developers like you are facing today. So challenges, what I mean by that is like, for example, what's the thing that you should be the most aware of? Is it that, for example, you as a software developer must be super cybersecurity knowledgeable, or is it something that there is just so many different technologies, like for example the mentioned DevOps ones, that you need to constantly chase and constantly learn and constantly update your knowledge? What are the sort of the biggest challenges that you as a software developer see in your career?
I think that I would say, like, as a software developer in general, one of the challenges that you face is like the rapid development of the field, right? Like every year you have always like new tools that are being introduced to the market. At some point, you have to kind of learn those tools if needed, and you have to keep up with all the trends. So I think that's a big challenge, because usually if there is like a new technology, you have to practice like a little bit that technology to have a solid understanding on how to use it. And I think that's one of the challenges that a developer can face. And also, it's like when you are working in a company, you as like a software developer, you're not only responsible for anything, that you shouldn't be just like tech savvy, but you also have to be business savvy as well. Because you need to understand the business domain of the company you work for. So also can introduce a challenge, especially if that business area is a bit difficult, or if it's like an area that you haven't been exposed to before. So it makes the learning curve a little bit steep.
I face a similar challenge with all the things that are popping up these days when it comes for the technology. But speaking about that, I was watching some presentation from some consulting guy he described the sort of 5G market, speaking about the trends, is that he went for the one conference in January, and there was like a 5 key topics. Like he went last year, and it was like a 5G monetization, sustainability, cybersecurity, all of that. 6 months later, he went for another conference, and the topic number 1 was generative AI in telco. So how AI can help. So none of these 6 trends that has been in the first conference was topic anymore. It was just generative AI. So 6 months earlier, nobody spoke about generative AI, but then trends just changed so rapidly that, as you said, we need to be business savvy also, right? To understand what type of sort of benefits these technologies or enablers or all these trends will bring to the table. So I couldn't agree more. And also from the perspective of us engineers there sitting, at the field sort of making the magic happen, we need to understand this from the technical and from the business perspective, and it's just so challenging, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So do you have some strategies, or do you have some maybe tips for people that also struggle with the same as you are? Do you have some strategies work out to how you tackle this challenge of constant need for learning?
Well, I mean, what I usually like to do, at least what works best for me, is that I try to learn by doing. Whenever there is a new technology, like what the very first thing I do is like just try to watch a crash course on YouTube, that specific technology or the technology of interest, to just get like a basic understanding first. And then once, let's say I have done that, I'll just bounce between the official documentation and some Udemy courses. And I personally like to focus on just one technology at a time. So I don't like to pick all the technologies and try to swallow just one big pill. Take it incrementally and just learn by doing.
I myself am preparing on taking some Azure certification, and I have the goal to have like 1 or 2 per year, more or less, to see that I'm on some kind of path. And of course, when you approach sort of this type of Azure or AWS certification, of course, you can just open a book and, just memorize everything, or you can just find some questions and just memorize the answers. But for me, it was never really the path. For me, it was always opening the labs that Azure, Microsoft, or Amazon provides, and you just do it. You just lab it, because it really brings the best results when you actually do something yourself. And when I sort of reach the basic level, I started to tweak it a bit, like to change it, to play around, because only then I start to understand the technology, So it's not just repeating someone that is, have the YouTube video. It's also, once you learn, you also try to, manipulate yourself and play with it. So that's also a great strategy.
Yeah, I also encourage people to just work on some pet projects, because it helps a lot, especially when you have like a good idea in mind and you want to execute it, or at least execute it through coding. It definitely helps.
The thing about this now is that some time ago I was preparing for a CCNA certification from Cisco certification, and with this exam, it's sometimes you get the lab or sometimes you don't. And every time when I have seen that someone posted on a Cisco group on Facebook that, I just passed, most of the people were asking, did you have labs? Or if you had the labs, what type of labs? Because people were really afraid of getting the labs. I completely couldn't understand that, because these are really the funnest part. You can really enjoy it and you can play with it, and it's actually really testing your knowledge, because if when you go to your workplace, nobody going to ask you about the theory. This is the code, you have to work with it. Come on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's like it's a practical field.
How do you approach problem solving in your role as a software developer? Do you have some specific methodologies or frameworks that you use?
What I like doing in general, I love collaboration. I usually prefer to, whenever there is a problem, I prefer to tackle that problem by collaborating with someone or some people. I see it more efficient when it's done that way, and it's more fun. Because there is that social interaction that is being involved in at work as well, and I enjoy that. I personally, that's how I prefer to work in general. Other than that, I prefer to take things also slowly, try to understand the problem slowly, think of it, take my time, because it could be that just you're taking a break, you're just drinking your coffee, but at the same time, you're thinking about that problem. And sometimes you just come up with good solutions during coffee time. I would say the 2 key elements here is just taking my time, taking it slowly, and collaborating.
Next question I have for you: what excites you about technology in the future?
DevOps is an area that captures my attention. It's because usually whenever I see, or at least I do some DevOps work, I feel like I'm just playing a jigsaw puzzle because you're just having multiple blocks and just putting all of them together in a specific order until you come up with a final picture. It's an area that's definitely that I might definitely consider. There is also AI is a field that I think is growing rapidly, and I think it's definitely an interesting field to master. Yeah, I think I can definitely see myself just switching to do some AI development.
And how in your view DevOps will look like in the future?
When it comes to the future, like what might happen after the containers, I don't know. But that's a good question. I will probably think about it more and then text you the answer.
Yeah, super. I wanted to ask you whether are there any certifications that you take or you would recommend someone to take, or you are anti certifications, like for Terraform or for AWS or for Azure, IT certification. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I'm definitely not against taking or having certifications. I think that it's a great way to learn a technology for sure. But of course, the focus needs to be to just try to grasp the concepts, not just to get the final certification to
Absolutely.
just off, right? So I think like the one needs to grasp the material. But I definitely I highly encourage people to go through or attend, take some certifications. There is an Azure course. I think that's what you mentioned earlier too. It's because it's known when it comes to DevOps. Like anybody who wants to learn Azure basically goes and tries to get the Microsoft certification, and I highly recommend people to do that. I mean, I would love to do that myself when I find more time for that. But I think that it's not just the certifications that help. I think that sometimes just take the Udemy course. I don't really care about the certification itself, but I just care about the material of that specific course. I definitely think that that's a good way of learning.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. In my case, I have a very similar approach. I do take certification, but it's not really to have the paper. It's not really the goal. But what I like about the certs is that you get really structured learning path. If I would like to learn about how the connectivity is being done on Azure, and I start to Google some things, it's so chaotic. You don't know where to start, and like Azure, it's not some like very easy technology. You can just jump on it and, for example, set up a VPN tunnel or whatever. There are just so many things that you need to learn first. And in my view, learning first really the basics. So this is why we have this certification path, makes everything much more easier. And this is something that I really like about the certifications, is that the learning structure is really well thought and very nicely structured. So this is something that I just adore.
When you try to, let's say, read some articles online, sometimes you just encounter some colliding opinions, and that's confusing for someone who's still just a beginner in that area. Yeah. So usually, as you said, it's like when there is like a clear learning path, it's valuable and it's efficient for your learning.
You also mentioned Udemy, and I have to say that I also do the same. I bought a few of the courses. I actually will add links, and I hope the courses that you are using so we can recommend to the audience. But also you have bought this super long course about DevOps. So it is like a walkthrough through all the technologies, and it's massive. It's really massive. For 1 year, I did a half of it. And I really love it. So it's also a great thing because you first learn Linux, which is really the basic. Then you have a little bit of Python. Then you have AWS and then CI/CD. And then you see that it all grows into one bigger picture. So I think both tracks, taking the certs and also doing some extra labs, is a great method to really build your sort of strong core in DevOps or cloud engineering or whatever you please. To ask you, in your view, because we touch upon so many different topics, but if you can pinpoint 3 key skills in IT, what that would be?
I think the first one that comes to mind, I would say, try to master at least one programming language. like today, a programming language is similar to a spoken language. So it opens doors it opens many doors to professional growth, right? So I think that would be my top one pick. I think like cloud development is a must know today, because usually if you are doing development or even DevOps, you have to use one of the cloud providers, GCP, Azure, or AWS.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think number 3 would be AI, since we had earlier about AI and how it's taken over. I think like it's good to know for sure.
Absolutely. From me, I would also add Linux.
You said only 3, so I couldn't add.
Yeah,
Linux.
I know. But from my perspective, that would be programming language, maybe Python or Go these days. Cloud, absolutely, because cloud is very often the heart of the whole system. And then also Linux, I think, and scripting, and that's just really the basic, and how Linux really works, and finding different processes. So from me, that would be also that. What do you find the most fun and motivating in tech?
I think the most motivating aspect of that is like, that what you are going to work on, or like the tool that you're going to use has a direct impact on you or on people's lives. I guess I mentioned earlier that I love automation, and I think the IT field in general helped us automate so many tedious work that we usually find ourselves doing. So I think that definitely motivates me, because if I know that I'm going to build something that will facilitate or make some other like future tasks easy for me or easier, so I would definitely be motivated and excited.
Yeah, what a great motivation! Really, for me, it's much more simple. Something that really motivates me, and it's the most fun for me, is when just the things work. I just love it. When I write some script, when I connect, the dots on using some platform, and like CI/CD or whatever, and I see it nicely works. It's just the best motivation for me. What are the disadvantages of being in tech you see? So you mentioned that you constantly need to learn new things, but do you see any other disadvantages, or what do you think about that?
Personally, don't see other disadvantages other than what I mentioned earlier, at least what I can think of now. But I think like this rapid development of technology in general is at least the one I can think of. Yeah. But
I see that many people are really struggling with that. I had that interview with my good friend Santiago. He's a networking engineer, and I also discussed this topic with him. And he said at some point he quoted this very famous Israeli philosopher Noah Harari. Quoted that, in the past you build a house using bricks, and that was your house, and today you build a tent, because you constantly need to sort of move as everything is constantly changes. It was something like this, but today you will not build your skills, and that's my skills at the end of my life. Today you build a tent, it's too cold, it's too windy, you move the tent to another place, and you just learn the new skills. So, of course, I think it was actually David's argument that, maybe you need to learn new technologies, but the basics still remains the same. You mentioned about a programming language. That will never go. Or even if, for example, we have a new programming language, the basics. So, I think having the strong core when it comes for the engineering is a really excellent starting point to later on grow your skills.
Oh, that's true. Like, of course, like the basics that already help considerably, for sure. But like sometimes you find yourself needing to use a framework, and a framework is usually like a tool that tells you how to use it in a specific way. It's not like a library where you can just cherry pick what you want and then just use it to fit the work that you have or the work that you need to accomplish. So if you find yourself just needing to learn these frameworks like every single year, I think it's a bit energy consuming. I think both energy and time consuming. And I think that's where the challenge lies.
Are there any books or podcasts or any other resources that you are using to sort of that has the significant impact on your career or thinking about the tech industry? Do you have this type of resources that you use? Sometimes podcasts may be career-wise, but also tech-wise.
Well, like as I mentioned earlier, like whenever I try to learn a new technology, I'll just go to YouTube. And on YouTube, there is a channel called Traversy Media. I use that channel often when I need to learn a specific tool because they have some very good crash courses. I definitely recommend checking out Traversy. There is also like another course which I have watched on Udemy. I think it's called The Bolts and Nuts of OAuth 2.0. That course helped me considerably as well to grasp all the authentication flows.
Which is not easy.
Yeah, they are really confusing, very grasp, and when you go and check it out online on Google, as you mentioned earlier, it adds to the confusion because there are so many opinions out there. They do not necessarily cover what you are interested in or what you want to learn. But I think that specific course, it cleared up all my confusion when it comes to OAuth 2.0 authentication flows.
It was also very confusing for me some time ago. Speaking about the difficult material to learn was this asymmetric and symmetric encryption standards. Jesus Christ, that was so difficult. And I at the moment I thought like, oh, I get it. Okay, this is how it works. You have a public key, you have a private key, and then you see another example of, for example, TLS transmission, like, oh shit, I don't understand that, So, but you also need to face this type of even difficult topics and you just like dive into it because this is really it's important. These are important concepts in a tech, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to know, like, you need to get some understanding in cryptography, networking, cybersecurity. Like there's so many fields that you have to be.
When I think about that, I think the perfect team for me is the one that everyone brings something to the table. So you have a networking guy, you have a security guy, you have a DevOps guy, you have a software developer guy, and everyone sort of, or you are this type of guy that has all of these skills a little bit, to find yourself. Because, for example, me working in tech, in 5G and networking domain, it is just impossible to know, for example, 5G only. It's impossible. You need to know security. You need to know IP stack. You need to know protocols. You need to know authentication, radio links. All of that. So being an engineer is not really about having one profession. It's about having a little bit from all of these domains.
Yeah, like you need to be exposed to multiple domains for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Is a must nowadays.
Now I want to do some rapid fire session. So you need to quickly reply which of these two you would prefer. So AWS or Azure?
Azure.
Okay, me too. Linux or Windows?
Windows.
Okay, I'm Linux guy. Maybe because I'm a bit more nerdy than you are. macOS or Android?
I would say Android.
Okay. Python or Go?
Go.
Okay, I would say Python.
I like both, but in my current job we use Golang, and I think I'm enjoying Golang more.
Super. And that would be the last question, but it doesn't mean that it's the least important. And I think it's actually one of the most important questions in this interview. I would like you to give answer to all the people that are inspiring to be DevOps or inspiring to be in the tech industry. What advice would you give to the younger colleagues or colleagues in our age or yet older colleagues, the people that would like to break into the tech and work as a software engineer or DevOps? What advice would you give?
I would highly encourage people to try and seek out some good advice, and especially like a good mentorship. I think definitely helps in guiding you toward the right direction when it comes to learning new technologies. I think that since we have spoken about AI earlier, I think it would be smart for people to come up with some creative ways to leverage AI to learn effectively, right? I highly encourage people to attend tech conferences when it's possible, because usually they have plenty of skilled and experienced individuals. And just by attending those conferences, you get a chance to get exposed to the newest trends, they definitely, I think they definitely give you a head start. Yeah, I think that's at least what comes to mind.
Super. I very much enjoy it. Great advices, really. And that was actually our last question. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please remember to subscribe. And thank you, Madi, for this interview. I very much enjoy it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Likewise. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah.
Super. Thanks.